I learned so much from him. I think one of the most important lessons I learned from John was after I graduated, I did a production of King Lear that he directed. I played Edgar. And we opened on Broadway after touring nationally. And it was my first big opening in New York. And I'd been on my own in New York since I was 17. I was a full scholarship student. I didn't have anywhere else, I didn't have anything to fall back on. This is what I trained to do. This was going to be my life's, this is what I was going to do with my life. Big opening in New York. The New York Times described my Edgar as watching a crab twitching on hot sand. It was ruthless. It was brutal. And he came back in the theater, and everyone else had gone off and was celebrating, at a party. And he saw me in my dressing room, alone, in the theater. And I was sitting in the dark, and I hear this voice from behind me say, "Every man in his life reaches a moment when he has to put one foot in front of the other and get on with the business of living. I believe you have arrived at such a moment." So he basically was saying, this is life. Shit happens. Get over it. And he was right. It was a very good lesson. It was kind of good to be smacked down that fast, that hard, right away. And so that was a wonderful lesson.
Thank you very much, sir.
Oh yes. My question to both of you is, what inspired you to get into voice acting?
All right. Okay. It was something I always wanted to do. Like Kevin, I also started in stage and in Broadway, and I was always on the wrong coast to be doing animation. It all takes place in LA, pretty much. And so maybe you'd get a couple of things in New York, a couple of things in Chicago, mostly commercials in Chicago. But yeah, I mean, what could be more fun than voice acting? So I went to LA with my resume and my new agents, and I just started auditioning and auditioning and auditioning, and it took a really, really long time. And finally I got a chance. I think my first animated shows were the MGM movies. I did the leads in The Wizard, or what am I talking about? Leads in The Secret of Nim, part 2. And, yay, thank you. And Tom Sawyer, and then I started doing a show for Nickelodeon called Chalk Zone. And then it just
I remember that.
And there is nothing more fun to me. I'm so grateful to get to do this.
What about you, Mr. Conroy?
I started doing voice work because I was working in New York in the theater, and even when you're working in the theater, you make no money. Even when you're very busy, you make no money. And this commercial producer, a friend of mine, said, "Why don't you put a tape together and see, a lot of the theater actors do voice work, commercial voice work." So I went in on my first call was for Paco Rabanne Cologne, and it was those words, "What is remembered is up to you." 7 words was the tagline. What is remembered is up to you. And it was the first one I went on, and I got it. And that year, I think I made $25,000 from those 7 words. And it basically, it paid for theater for a year. It was great. So when I went to LA and started doing prime time work, my agent there said, "Look, let's give it a shot at animation." And Batman was the first animated role I did. Oh, isn't that amazing? Yeah, amazing. That was just a sort of a lucky marriage of my background in the theater and what they were looking for. I didn't know anything about The Dark Knight. I didn't know anything about the legacy that you all are much more familiar with. All I knew was the Batman series that Adam West did. But that has nothing to do with the Batman legacy. I mean, that's like a whole different thing. So I went in to meet Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and Andrea Romano, and I said, is this like the Adam West thing? And they went, no. You know, that was campy, and that was, no. This is dark, this is film noir, he's lost both his parents as a child, he's living to avenge their death, he's living in the shadows, and no one understands him. And I said, well, you're telling the Hamlet story. And they said, well, no one's actually put it that way before. So I said, well, let me just use my imagination and see what I come up with. So it was just a shot in the dark. Using my imagination in that soundproof, I kind of came up with this very husky, secretive kind of sound. And they loved it. So, and it was the first thing I got on for animation. And that was 22 years ago. So, go figure.
All right, my question is for the one and only Mr. Kevin Conroy.
Oh.
I want to know, like, with the different Batman series, you know, cartoons going on, why don't they make you just the voice of Batman, period? Is that production? Is that money situation? Or,
At Warner Brothers, they refer to me as classic Batman.
Oh, come on
I'm
now.
like the classic Batman. And, but, you know, every time there's a new director or producer on a show or a writer, they want to put their own imprint on it. And just like all the live-action Batman movies have had different actors doing the Batman, different directors just want to put their own imprint on it. That's what it is.
Right. I think, like, hands down, you are Batman, and you should, like, it would make the cartoons more. I would watch the rest of the cartoons, you know? So, I mean.
I appreciate that, thank you. And I look, I love doing it, and I identify with the character. And Bruce Timm and Alan Burnett and Paul Dini and Andrea Romano, we all work great together. We love working together. But every now and then, someone else comes in and they just want to try a different sound. So it has nothing to do with my not wanting to do it or their not wanting to use me. It's usually just about wanting to try something different periodically.
And another question, a couple questions. I've noticed from the earlier days on, like the 1993, 1992, your voice was more subtle, and when the newer adventures came out, it was more sexy. You even had the blue eyes going with it. So, I mean, was there like a drastic change for a reason why you went from like subtle to like,
Why I got sexier?
Your voice was sexy. Even like I had a crush on you, like, you know? I mean, right? Like.
Maybe you were just getting older.
Oh no! I'm only
starting
20.
to think certain thoughts.
I'm 25, so yeah, I guess I am getting older. And also, I love the episode of Justice League Unlimited where you sang. Did you have to sing right on point, or did you have to rehearse? That was the scene where, you know.
Well, no, Andrea knows that I sing, and she knows that I love to sing, and they've never used my singing in anything. So she said, "Oh, let's just have him and sing." So one day she just threw it at me,
right?
And they had me singing in the booth right that day.
That was so awesome. I was like, that was a moment. I'm like, oh my goodness! Like Kevin Conroy singing, Batman singing. You never hear
fun?
that. Yeah.
It was fun.
It was awesome. You're awesome, Kevin.
Thank you.
You're awesome.
First off, I'd like to thank Kevin for being part of my childhood.
You're welcome.
Very awesome part, I might add. Mainly, it's a two-part question. It's first, what would you say was the best episode that or the most fun you had filming an episode? Like, what episode was the most fun to record for? And what would you say is your favorite episode, just period, from the anime Batman series?
I think Hayden would agree with me that actors like to be challenged. They like to have to stretch. You just like to mix things up and be pushed a little bit. And there was an episode called Perchance to Dream. And in that episode, it was all about the acting. I mean, most of it's in black and white, which is fascinating. And Batman gets drugged, and he goes back into his childhood. And so I was young Bruce Wayne, I was old Bruce Wayne, I was Batman, I was drugged Batman, and then I was like insane Batman, you know, evil Batman. So they all had to be believably related, but distinct. And I said to Andrea, I said, you know what would be really cool? I said, what if we recorded this in real time? Instead of doing all the one voice and all the other voice and all the other voice and all the voice and editing it in the booth, what if you let me just go back and forth acting with myself?
It's the most fun, isn't it?
Oh! It was so much fun to record. And then she said, okay, now that you've done that, we'll go back and we'll do each voice separately so we're covered, you know, just to be sure. But it was such a blast recording it. And it was so challenging, and I loved doing it. And I think what came out was a really wonderful episode. So I think that's my favorite.
Would you say that's also your favorite just episode in general?
Well, some of the movies, like I think Sub-Zero is an amazing visual movie. It's a beautiful. They've all been, you know, because the standard was so high. They spent twice. Did you know this? They spent twice per episode for Batman as they had spent previously. They doubled the budget. And you can see it. It's why the artwork was so beautiful. It's why there was a full symphony score. It's why they had 9 and 10 actors in each show. They had big casts. So the quality was consistently really amazing. So it's really hard to pick one that I think, other than Perchance to Dream, was really wonderful. I loved Sub-Zero.
Mask of the Phantasm.
Mask of the Phantasm. That's a lot of people's favorite. The first movie, and it was a great movie. And Dana Delaney, I love working with. So you know, they hired so many good actors, and they spent so much on the visuals that they're all very high quality.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
First of all, I would like
Hi.
to say I'm very inspired by both of you so very much.
Thank you.
You guys are like what I'm after. I want to be a voice actor as well. And I was wondering if you have a few inspirational words to say to people who are on the journey to try to be voice actors, such as yourselves.
Sure. Do theater, get experience, get educated, be in front of people, learn from an audience. That's how you do it. And theater is the most direct, it's the most energy going out, and you're just using your sound to do it. But yeah, that's really what it is. Get experience, be on stage, learn to act, be the best judge of when you're good and when you're not good, because you can fix that if you've got that inner judge of like, that was excellent, that was terrible, let's do another take, you know. And now with all this technology, besides just theater, you can have a home studio and listen, record some scripts, like see what you sound like, really experiment wildly, and listen back and be an uncanny judge of what's working and what's not in your own voice. That's mine.
I would agree about the theater, the importance of theater for any actor. We're living in such a, you know, with Entertainment Tonight and People Magazine, and it's such a media celebrity culture now that there's almost a distinction between celebrities and actors. I have a friend who's a model, who's one of the highest paid models in the business, the Perry Ellis model. And he used to say, Kevin, you want to be an actor. I don't want to be an actor. I just want to be a star. And I thought, wow, he was very self-aware. He knew that he wasn't an actor, but he knew that he wanted to be a celebrity, a star. And that's sort of what's happened in Hollywood. So I think you can get sort of blinded by all that hubbub and all the bull and forget that Theater is about acting. The actor's in charge. Television is about writing. The writers are in charge. They run the show. They're the producers. They can make an actor look great. They can make an actor look horrible. And film is about directing. It's a director's medium. The director is in charge. He can make a terrible script look great. He can make terrible actors look great. And he can make great actors look horrible. Just look at Les Mis. And so theater is where the actor's in charge, and it's the only one, and it's trial by fire, and it's you live by doing, and you experiment, and the other thing is I would say, and I'm sure you'd agree, is dare to be an idiot, make mistakes. The only way you know what your limits are is if you stretch yourself far enough that you feel like a fool. And then you learn from that.
Thank you so much.